if you listen to what the finance minister had said in his speech, 70% of the funding of political parties is done by cash, and the rest 30% was through checks or legit means. That means only 30% was coming under the scanner. It was a legitimate transaction. By this, under this new tax, in the new electoral bond regime, what will happen is, it is a possibility that unknown entities, whether from within our borders or from outside, can ask their banks incognito to transfer a certain amount to the political party's accounts, and the political party gets the bonds and they can redeem it. So it is like a gift check. You don't know who has given the gift check. So this 30% also will become totally unknown. The sources will be unknown. The government had been telling us, especially since Mr. Damodar Das Modi came to power, that we will make electoral funding more transparent. But in reality, what they have done is not make it transparent. They have put it complete. They have made it more opaque. What this will entail is, foreign companies will be able to make clandestine incognito donations to political parties which they think they might win, and then they, after the party comes to power, they will be able to lobby for alterations to the laws which will suit them, and people will not come to know the laws that are being passed are favoring whom. So this will be a backdoor lobbying, which I think is unhealthy for a democratic nation like India in the 21st century. If at all you want to permit lobbying, you should make it very transparent and open up for lobbying. Let people know who's lobbying for what. Other countries have given us examples of that. So make it transparent, make it open to the public scrutiny.
Okay.
But this way, they are taking it out of the ambit of RTI, they are taking it out of the scope of any judicial inquiry. So what is the effort is till now very unclear. I think this is an unhealthy step.
Is it dangerous also?
It is obviously dangerous. If it is unhealthy, it is dangerous. If an electoral funding system becomes totally under wraps, goes totally under wraps, then obviously one will not know what is happening, why is the government behaving in a certain pattern, why are the elected representatives acting in a certain manner.
Dangerous to what extent?
Extent is very difficult to tell now. It could be to any extent, because you see, once foreign companies can lobby, you don't know who. Let's say a Chinese company, it will start funding Indian political parties. I'm just giving an example. And then what it will do is, like Paytm is a Chinese company. What it will do is, it will take up your banking services. Gradually it will buy up. Now, as it is, government is saying we will add many small banks and create major 7, 8, 10 banks. So these companies will buy up, let's say 2 or 3 foreign companies will buy up 4, 5 Indian banking companies. Then all your banks are in their hands. So all your finances, all your systems, financial systems, your economy is in their hands. They will twist and turn. I am not going into defense. I am not going into arms and weapons and your
new security. This thing.
That part is, it's a whole different ball game. I am talking about just financial aspects.
Okay. Now, Aadhaar is the new mantra which has been made mandatory to file IT returns, and it's linked to the PAN. How deep is the danger in making our personal information public?
See, anybody First of all, I have consistently opposed Aadhaar from the UPA time. My stand is very clear in the sense that who is going to get all this data, which subcontractor, which contractor will have access, we do not know. How they will use the data, we do not know. When a paper is passing through your hand, it is quite possible that you make a copy and you send it to the central depository. But since it is passing through your hands, you have access to all this kind of data, individual, personal, family data, which I think is deadly in the future. You will have, say for an individual's data bank, you will have his health records, his family records, his wife's records, his children's records, income, everything from health to income to habits to criminal antecedents to driving accidents or whatever is related, everything you will have. When you are doing that, anybody, for instance, if they have an idea of what microfinancing is, they will understand. These microfinance companies collect a lot of data, not biometric data, but a lot of other data about people whom they give money, small money. Because we are an impoverished nation, both economically and I would also add mentally, we do not understand what happens to that data. These microfinance companies are known to be selling that data commercially. They sell it to, let's say a company wants to market a baby food in a certain place. They will figure out what kind of people live there, what is their budget at present, what is their economic status, what is their health conditions, and what are the claims if we make, false or true is secondary, what are the claims that if we make will be acceptable to the people. They can tailor make for every territory, they can tailor make their advertisements in such a manner that people feel, oh, this is exactly what I need. So with commercialism coming into a bigger playground and individual data available at a minimal cost to anybody who wants it, which I gave an example of the microfinance companies which sell data for something like 4%. 4% of what? 4% of whatever they have funded that person. Suppose they have funded that person 10,000 rupees. You pay 4% of that, they will give you his data. It's like that. It's happening across the country. So, some people argue that you so willingly give your fingerprints, your date of birth, everything on internet websites. Why are you objecting to this? I, for one, do not do such a thing on the website. Even on my iPhone, it has a finger touch opening. I do not use it on my phone. I go in for a passcode. There is a choice. This is a personal instrument that I have bought by paying money. Why should the government not give me a personal code? Why does it require all my data? And okay, let us admit that in the modern world, it is safest for a country, overpopulated country, to have something like Aadhaar. Admitted. Fine. Then will the government come up and say that we are going to put in voting connected to Aadhaar? You have an Aadhaar card, you can vote. So you have a unique number, you put in that number, you put in your fingerprint, and then only you are eligible to vote.
How is that going to help?
How is that going to help? First of all, political parties, their expenditures will drop. Because what will a worker do? If you do not have to go to a booth and you can sit at home and vote on your computer or through your phone, you will not go to a booth. You will not need coaxing that please come and vote, please come and vote. Why do you see a rush at the last minute in polling booths? That is primarily because many people are lazy, they don't go out in the morning. That is where the worker of a political party comes to play. He goes from or she goes from house to house and says, Masi, have you voted? Sir, have you voted? If not, please come, please come, please come. And they herd people. That would be gone.
But this Aadhaar they can use even in polling booths. That if you have Aadhaar, you show the Aadhaar card and you can vote.
See, that is what we had been told with our voter ID cards also.
Yeah.
Have you ever been able to vote with your voter ID card? No. If you had a voter ID card and your name was not in the electoral roll, you would not be allowed. This has happened to me, being a candidate myself. Luckily, I was in the electoral roll. So, but they search that first. They don't go by the card. So all these documents do not have any meaning if finally you are not there in the government roll. Why? You have multiple booths, no manning required, no government officer needs to take leave, nobody has to be deployed, no police has to be deployed. You have a connected online voting system. Since you are doing everything online, go in for polling like that. There will be no requirement for rushing security forces from this state to that state to this place to that place. One single day, votes are cast. Next day morning, you have on your computer, you have the exact figures. Do that. Let them do that. Let us see if they have the courage to do that. They are removing the redressal mechanisms. For example, I personally believe they are putting together these 8 tribunals. The idea is also, one of the ideas is to remove the competition, that competition tribunal that the UPA had put in place. Plus, they want to remove the National Green Tribunal. NGT. Because that is creating a problem for them. The other tribunals were not really that bothersome. These are bothersome tribunals, CAT and NGT. So the idea could have been that how to remove these 2-3 bothersome tribunals. Because these are people who are becoming chairmen and the government has no control over them. So the government wants to get rid of these irritants. First, for example, they will spread canards that this chairman of this tribunal is very corrupt, you give money, you get a judgment, you get a directive, all that they spread, which they did. You know, in regards to which tribunal they did that. Then the next step is, these are unnecessary, remove them. So the ground has been laid already that this man was corrupt, that person was corrupt, this organization is bad, good, it's gone. So once the citizen feels it is good that this thing has gone, it becomes easy for them to operate. Now you have brought in taxation for farmers also. So once you are going into taxation for farmers, then what will happen is, with this kind of a power, the income tax authorities can keep everybody on tenterhooks. They can terrorize people. Whether they find something or not, it will become secondary. They will not have to explain. There is no authority, not even a court, which can ask them. Some income tax officers that I talked to said, no, that existed, that already existed. But we had to tell the source. They never told the source who gave them the tip-off. But if you can enter a premises, a home, without any warning, where there is no commercial activity going on, a private home, then you have to give a reason. Because in a country like India, there is enough opportunity for bad elements to misutilize this power.
Yeah, so do you think, can we equate this with Armed Forces Special Powers Act?
Absolutely. It is like that. It is similar. They want that to happen all over the country without, without moving in the military. They want to have that kind of power. Worse, Congress was very bad, and these people are just following that line. If you see the past 3 years till now, everything that the Congress had started, these people are making it into a more acute angle. So both of them are two sides of the same coin. And it will take time for people to realize that I am not joking. The driving forces, the unseen driving forces behind the Congress then and the BJP today are same. But they saw that the Congress experiment failed eventually after a decade. So now they are in a hurry. They want to ensure that while the going is good, the bad get going. There's government statistics to prove this. If I am not giving you money, if I am not lending out money to business and industry, how is business and industry growing? How is the GDP growing? And this is funny. I don't understand how they calculate GDP without bringing in productivity as an important aspect. So that's jugglery of figures, right? Yes, I agree with you. It is just jugglery of figures. I'm not against statistics. What I'm saying is, I don't believe our statistics are organized and are correct, that a nation of this size can solely depend on that. For example, the census of 2011, which pegs us at 125 crores, 1.25 billion. I am seeing the growth in my state, and I feel the population is nothing less than 1.5 billion in India today. Now you will say, how do you say that? Are you just making wild allegations or wild comments? I have no method to prove, but I have seen how census works. So are we building that up are we factoring that in our programs? We are not. And even when they gave it, they put it at 1.25 billion, at that time also it wouldn't have been less than 1.35 to 1.4 billion. We do not have a word for privacy, the word privacy, in most Indian languages that I know of. There is no such word in Tamil. There is no such word, as far as I know, in Hindi. I'm not good in Hindi, but I know there is no such word. Are we taking into account the whole background, how that fight developed? Because I was not an eyewitness. I would not like to comment. I do not condone the man taking out his footwear and slapping somebody and claiming bravely that I slapped not 17 times but 25 times. I think that is only a madman who should do that. But I also know the other side, that airline staff, they misbehave with passengers. The pilots get drunk and do not report on duty. Or if they report, they are found unfit because they have residual alcohol. They have to wait till their alcohol level goes down. Then they fly. Why should a traveler who's paying money for the ticket have to wait 6 hours for a pilot to get normal so that he can go? Why should that happen? Is there any redressal system for that? What is happening is, we are becoming a nation of cops. In the sense that if you scold one pilot, the Pilots Association will go on strike. Then it is the individual versus all pilots of India. Who wins, who loses? If the man filed an FIR, that not so honorable MP, you can quote that, the not so honorable MP as people think he is, will be arrested. He'll be, if the court finds him guilty, in everybody's case, law will take its own course. See, I am not a permanent MP. My MP post is there because people have voted me. Tomorrow, if people don't vote me, I am not an MP. I am not talking in favor of MPs. I am talking as a citizen of India.
Right. Yeah.
Just because you are a group and you can get organized immediately, you are hitting out at individuals and at the legal system. Khap system is very much the same thing. In a village, the village sarpanch and a few others get together. They can strip, they can hang a girl, they can beat her up, they can do anything. So you are accepting that let's get into a khap mode. Khap Panchayat mode, Khap Panchayat, no? Khap Panchayat mode. 1951, 52, this is how it had started. But over a period of time, democracy is a free-flowing thing. It is not a militarized governance system. So in the free-flowing time, some places the state governments collapsed. The parliament in the 12th Lok Sabha collapsed after 13 months. In the 11th Lok Sabha, it collapsed after 18 months. So that can again happen. Okay. Right? Now what I am saying is, when the Prime Minister is saying that let's have simultaneous elections, does he understand the financial implications of bringing forward all the elections or bringing back all the elections, having them together, and again maybe 4 or 5 years later one assembly collapses. Oh, there is one BJP instigated defection in some other assembly, like they tried in Uttarakhand, they tried in some other places, or where people have not voted for them, they have tried and bought MLAs and formed a government, like in Manipur or in Goa. So the Congress had done this, the BJP is doing it. That's why at the outset I had said they are two sides of the same coin. He wants to advance the Gujarat elections because again, when the going gets good, the bad get going. Nobody can split the BJD so long as Naveen Patnaik is in control. He's unchallenged, he's unchallengeable, and his popularity with the people, common people, is still intact, his reputation is unblemished. We are all direct beneficiaries of the largesse of Naveen Patnaik.